Hey guys, Dino Dicer here. I'm gonna yap a bit about some channel stuff before the video gets started, so if you're just here for the review, then skip ahead. So, the channel is very slowly but surely making its way to 10k subs, which is pretty neat. I'm not one to care too much about the sub count since it doesn't really change anything in terms of how I approach making videos. The stuff I make is pretty unappealing from a YouTube algorithm standpoint anyways, especially when I make 4 videos in a row talking for 30 minutes each about some shitty Italian plane that you already knew was shitty, so growth expectations aren't very high to begin with. But I like making them regardless, and it's fun to talk to and learn with you guys, and it's cool that we have this nice thing going. It's fun hanging out with you guys, just yapping about stuff on the Discord server as well. Whether it's just about War Thunder planes or arguing about a cheese tier list, I don't know, but you guys are pretty chill. Anyways, I wasn't planning on doing anything, but some of you guys were suggesting I make a special video or host some kind of event for the 10k milestone. I know some people do Q&As. That doesn't really seem that appealing to me since I'm active on the Discord and I answer all the comments anyways, so I don't really see the point, but let me know if you guys have any suggestions for what I could do that could also be fun and interesting for you guys as well. And in terms of vehicle suggestion for reviews, I've had it open to anyone on the Discord server for about a month or so, where each person could suggest one vehicle each. I don't like skipping suggestions if I can help it, unless I know it's a joke suggestion just to torture me, so I've been going through them in order from earliest to the most recent suggestions. And you've probably noticed that I've been trying to burn through that list as fast as possible at a content mill slop farm pace to try and keep up with it, but I'm still at least 60 suggestions deep. So even at my current pace, I won't be done until summer, so unfortunately I am closing open vehicle suggestions for now. I do like letting you guys suggest stuff and giving equal attention to each of your suggestions. I think it gives a more diverse look at all of the planes in-game instead of just covering the popular premiums or the OP meta plane of the month, even if at least half of your suggestions are objectively hot garbage. But as much as I enjoy making these videos, I am but one guy, and as much as I'd like to, I cannot keep up with the pace of suggestions if they stay open like this. I would also consider a format where I could review multiple planes at once as well, but I'd imagine it would also take multiple times the time investment to actually play those planes enough to form an opinion that isn't just regurgitated surface level garbage that anybody can spew out and isn't really useful to anybody. I don't really want to do polls for what I should cover next either, since this tends to heavily dilute and skew the suggestions towards more popular vehicles, when I would also like to give attention to the more obscure and underrepresented vehicles in-game. Maybe I'll open suggestions again someday, but for now I'd like to just focus on getting through the current pile without getting even more intimidated by a growing list bigger than it already is. Suggestions will of course stay open for channel members, who will continue to get priority in terms of when I cover their requested vehicle. I'm not the biggest fan of paywalling stuff, and I'd like everyone to have equal access, but I don't really see a solution otherwise at the moment, so it is what it is, at least for now. Oh, and one more thing, a guy on our Discord is hosting a Minecraft server starting today, so if you're interested in it and you haven't already joined, then go join the Discord, give yourself the Minecraft role, and send us your username so that we can whitelist you. You do have to be in the Discord if you want to join. It's slightly modded to Vanilla Plus, and in terms of rules, it's just don't be an asshole, and just try to have fun with each other. I'll be on semi-regularly, depending on how often my schedule permits. Anyways, on to the vehicle review. I was starting out stock since I was putting off spading this plane since I only got it after Fox 3s were added and I didn't think it would be that good of a plane. But I had some free premium time from redeeming that free code for some Japanese ship that Gaijin was promoting. It was about to expire soon, so I thought I might as well try spading it while I had it, and wow, this plane really is something else. The flight model is pretty good. It goes pretty fast, turns pretty well. It does bleed speed and turn since it is a Delta, but it's not the worst. I'd say it feels sort of like an F-15C, but with a little less power and a bit less floppy, and with no AOA button. So overall, it's pretty decent, though not anything special. Still, it's worth mentioning that the Mirage 2000 on the other hand has a horrible flight model. It feels very heavy, has a horrible energy retention, and somehow its roll is very sluggish. It just feels like a brick to play for some reason. It's been a while since I last played it, but I remember them feeling a lot better, almost as good as an F-16 in turn fights, but maybe I missed a nerf or two since the Mirage 2000 now handles like absolute garbage, in a similar tier to the MiG-29. Would much rather be dogfighting while in the Mirage 4000 instead of the 2000. As for the radar, it's basically the same as the one on the early Mirage 2000s, and it's surprisingly good at picking up targets that are within the scan area. However, this is where the positives of the radar end. First, the scan area in TWS is horrible. No matter what scan pattern you choose, you're always stuck with one scan line with 3 degrees of vertical scan area, so you're effectively trying to see what's going on through a tiny slit. Other non-TWS search modes have somewhat better scan patterns, but then you lose out on the target tracking and visual location display of TWS, which is vital for keeping track of the enemy as you maneuver. Plus, the scan rate is pretty slow anyways, so even if you did have a wider scan area, it wouldn't really help that much. Second, you do not get access to a full TWS mode, only TWS head-on. This means that it's impossible for you to see anyone that's flying away from you if they're going slower than you. Thirdly, and perhaps related to the previous limitation, the radar is incredibly easy to notch, even without trying. It's very susceptible to ground clutter. Even if it doesn't show up on your display, you can see the symbol next to the radar display right here. And as if it wasn't bad enough, the radar loves to pick up chaff, even in TWS head-on, where you'd expect it to filter it out. If the enemy is chaffing, even if they aren't in a perfect notch, the radar will pick it up and lock chaff as if it's a viable target. And to cap it all off, the radar can only display 8 targets in TWS. I think it prioritizes closer targets, but either way, it's incredibly tragic. Interestingly, the radar does have NCTR target ID on hardlock, being able to tell you if the target is a jet, multi-jet, or random clutter that you don't care about, which is kind of neat but doesn't really make up for all of the other deficiencies. Every single time someone chaffs, it's like it reminds you of how bad it is at holding lock by telling you, "Oh, look over here, I found some chaff for you. Is that what you're looking for?" When there is clearly a plane that is not notching that you're trying to lock with the ACM. You get no HMD, so you'd actually want a decent tall box ACM to lock people off bore sight at closer ranges, but this tall box ACM is the most stunted and malnourished piece of garbage that I've seen. And what's funnier is that 2/3 of it extends below the plane, not above. I get the feeling that this is probably a bug. Like, what's the point of having a tall box ACM that extends farther below the horizon than above? Either way, it's not that helpful. The scan rate is also so slow that it's not really that much faster than just fully nosing over and using the small ACM. Despite how clunky the Su-27's radar is, it feels leagues better to use than this one, probably because it's also paired with a much better missile kit. Which brings us to our next point of discussion. I'll go through the missiles separately and then talk about the overall loadout. First, the Super 530Ds. I explicitly remember that people used to glaze this missile, saying that it could get up to R27 ER speeds. And I do remember them being very solid semi-active radar missiles at some point in time, so it makes me wonder what they did to them, because now they are just Sparrows but worse. They have a similarly abysmal speed and acceleration on launch, but don't burn for as long as Sparrows, so the 530D doesn't even have the Sparrow's long-range performance. Not that it matters anyway, since the radar is so easily notched that it's probably not going to get that far anyways. It is also among one of the worst turning missiles for shorter ranges, only worse than the Sky Flashes or R-24R, and those missiles have a wider circle since they at least accelerate kind of fast off the rail. Plus, it has a longer proximity fuse arming time than the Sparrow, so even if it could turn like a Sparrow, it probably wouldn't fuse for closer range head-on shots. I suppose it makes some sort of sense, since this is an evolution of the original 530s that you can find all the way down at 10.0 on the Mirage 3s. And it also does look kind of like a fat turd, so I guess it would also perform like one. I will say that they do tend to track pretty decently when you hold their locks, at least compared to the horrendous tracking of the Sparrows on the F4J, but that's a pretty low bar. They do also have a 20-second break lock time like the Sparrows, but are much worse at relocking since notching enemies will usually go a little cold, which you would be able to reacquire if your radar wasn't head-on only. Because of the easily notched radar and poor close-range performance, you're best off trying to use it between 4 to 8 kilometers in range. Any closer or any farther, and you're kind of asking for the missile to miss. And even within this range, it's not a guarantee since the missile is very slow, and so it's fairly easy to get into the notch before the missile actually gets to the target, especially against any good turning 4th gen airframe. In fact, because these missiles are so slow and even less maneuverable than the Sparrows, they are even easier to roll dodge than Sparrows. They do still burn for a fair bit of time, so you can use the smoke to track the missile's progress. But if you're flying through a set of clouds like this, then it's hard to tell whether the missile has actually gotten to the target or not, so I ended up double launching here and wasting a missile. I guess I could have used missile camera, but it was a bit of an intense situation, and I'd kind of expected this guy to multipath the first one. They also seem to be very good at dying in ways that I did not expect. Maybe because it's so slow and so large and maneuvers so poorly, this guy was able to shoot it out before it actually got to him? Like, okay, come on, these missiles are bad enough. You really gotta do me like that? And somehow somebody also sent an R-27 ET to intercept a missile that was meant for somebody else. I don't know how this stuff happens, but overall the experience of using these paired with the radar is very not good. As for your IR missiles, you get Magic 2s, which are okay for very short range combat. They accelerate well and turn pretty well off the rail, and their gate with IRCCM can work okay from rear aspect or if the enemy doesn't maneuver. But it has nearly a 2-second proximity fuse arming time, so if you launch too close in the head-on, then it will just not hit. This isn't a problem that you have to worry about with any of the other IR missiles that are good at very close range head-ons like the R60Ms or R73s, or even maybe the Pythons or Chinese IR missiles, which all have an arm time of almost 4 times shorter at half a second. So it's best not to launch under 1 kilometer, and because you have to launch it from longer ranges, it means that your IRCCM isn't going to be nearly as effective. Apart from that, the Magic 2s also have a very short range. Launching on anyone past 2 kilometers is a gamble, especially if they're going fast and away from you. If you give them enough speed, they might be able to go maybe 4 kilometers against very slow targets, but under most circumstances, you want to be very close to the enemy before firing them, which then gets you spotted, so it's easier for the enemy to actually react to you incoming and firing the missile. While longer range IR missiles can benefit from the enemy not being aware of where you are and where the missile is. So your overall missile kit is very restrictive in terms of what range you can effectively use them at. Super close ranges under 2 kilometers for IR missiles, medium ranges around 4 to 8 kilometers for the radar missiles, and any range outside of that is beyond your reasonable amount of reach. Which is not good when you have to fight long-range Fox 1s and Fox 3s like R27ERs, Fakors, AMRAAMs, PL-12s, basically every match since you are 13.0. In terms of loadout, you can potentially carry 8 Magic 2s or swap them out for 4 Super 530Ds, but if you swap out more than 2, then you sacrifice 2 Magics each for each 530. This BR is very much dominated by radar missiles, so personally I'd advise you to carry at least 3, maybe even 4 Super 530Ds, even if it hurts that you have to sacrifice 2 Magic 2s for each one of those. The RWR is good, just your standard 4th gen RWR. The countermeasure count is very good, though I wish it was a little bit more customizable. You get over 300 chaff and 112 undesignated, which you should probably just put all into flares, and all of these are large caliber. This is plenty for most situations, though I would like it if you could do a more even split of chaff and flares. The undesignated countermeasures pop 2 at a time, so you get 56 pops as opposed to the 300 chaff that pop 1 at a time, so overall it is plenty for most situations, but because you also have a poor missile kit, you will almost start all engagements in the defensive, and if someone is approaching within IR missile range, it's good to keep flaring, so I have ended up running out of flares in some cases. Either way, the countermeasures are still very good and definitely not the weakest link on this plane. The stock grind is not the worst one out there, but it's more annoying than it had to be. The flight performance is obviously not the most competitive to begin with, and obviously it's going to be even more unpleasant to use without the boosters or the G-Suit, but I only felt like the performance was really good enough once I got to Tier 4 performance mods, which was a pain to get to since you need 3 Tier 3 modifications to unlock it. Unfortunately, there's only 1 Tier 3 flight performance modification, so I ended up going for the guns and the missiles, both of which you need to go back and research more stuff for, and the guns in particular were something that I wanted to ignore until I was able to get everything else. The Super 530Ds are also a Tier 4 mod, so I was stuck playing with just 2 radar missiles for the most of the time, which was very suboptimal. I would understand if these missiles were amazing Fox 1s or Fox 3s, but come on, these should not be something I need to spend half of my grind just to get Sparrows but worse. If you're stock grinding this plane, I would avoid using the 530Fs since they're pulse missiles and get 1 chaff, even if they're slightly more chaff resistant than your average pulse missile. I unfortunately didn't get very far on the premium time I had, so I had to raw dog at least 50% of this stock grind, and while I am done with all of the Air RB relevant mods, I don't think I care enough to fully spade it with all of the bombs and ground ordnance. Most of the footage you're seeing here is stock grinding footage anyways. I don't have the full Air RB relevant kit unlocked until I have the eyes on the plane, so you'll be able to tell whether the gameplay is spaded or not. Now let's take a look at the competition just at your own BR of 13.0. Iranian F-14s, F-4F ICE, Su-27, Su-33, F-2 ADTW, J-8F, Gripen A, Kafir C-10. Like, come on, the F-15A and J are at lower BRs than it is now, and they're objectively better planes, even if you think the difference is marginal. I had a more consistent time just getting a few kills in the MiG-29 at least, since that comes with 2 free kills from the ERs. So, because of this, I think the Mirage 4000 is one of the few planes that is actually balanced properly in this game. The Mirage F1C is at 12.0, the Mirage 2000 CS4 is better, so it's at 12.3, the Mirage 2000 CS5 is even better than that, so it's at 12.7, and the Mirage 4000 is better again, so it's at 13.0. The problem, of course, is that the F-15 should be 13.0 at least, the Su-33 should be 13.3, the F-16 ADFs and MiG-29 SMT should be 13.7, the premium Su-30s should be 14.0, the Su-27 SM should be 14.3, so on and so forth, you get the picture. And yet here we are in the trash compactor, which is a pretty apt analogy for a lot of what War Thunder matchmaking has become. A hot mess of compressed garbage. Anyways, the playstyle for this plane is that of most semi-active slingers, except you're even more limited in range than others due to your poor head-on radar. Plus the fact that if you bring all of your radar missiles, then you only get 2 IR, so your full kit is a straight downgrade from the F-15A or J. I tend not to climb more than 4 kilometers and then stick with the team, since if I get hard focused into the defensive position by multiple people, then you're just screwed. If you're stock grinding with only 2 radar missiles, you're even more limited and want to stay even lower. You're not going to be able to benefit from being able to sling radar missiles from higher altitudes, so you might as well just stick to the deck and close to your friends. But no matter what you do, you'll always be at some sort of disadvantage, and this is the case even in down tiers. Even if a lot of the enemies playing at this BR are not that great, you still have to compete with your friendlies who have much better missiles, much better range, much better performance, while you have to try and get up close and personal, get yourself spotted. Even if you do attempt to launch from long range and everything goes right, nobody notches, nobody chaffs, it's still incredibly likely that the enemy just dies to a friendly missile that just managed to get there faster than yours. The problem gets even worse when you're stock. Since you only get 2 radar missiles, you're stuck with trying to make 6 Magic 2s work, and it is close to impossible to find a good scenario in which you can sling these off. With the F-16A and the AIM-9Ls, there are certain angles that you can try and make them work from since they have decent range. Plus you're at a lower BR, so you don't have to worry nearly as much about Fox 3 slingers. But with this plane, trying to climb far right and then flank the enemies to try and rain down a barrage of Magic 2s is a suicide mission. And you're probably not even going to be able to get close before somebody's going to shoot you out with a Sparrow or a Phoenix or an AMRAAM or anything else. The IR missile meta that this plane used to thrive in is now truly dead, ever since they changed the multipath height from 100 meters to 60. I also want to emphasize that you really want to try and stick with your team. Most of the time this does mean flying to the left, but you cannot guarantee that, so you want to check your map to make sure that you're flying with them. Because sometimes they go in a different direction, and then you end up in situations where you're all alone and you're trying to dodge a bunch of missiles from different directions, and you have no way of responding because of your range, because of your slow missiles, your poor radar. You really do not have an answer for a 1v2 or anything higher. Against Fox 3 slingers, you can try to counterfire against them just to put them in the defensive, but this does lose you a missile that could have been better used. The other option is to stay notched until they get close enough and then try to force a dogfight, which you might have a chance of winning, though you will be starting side aspect with a massive positional disadvantage. And really briefly, I want to talk about F-18s, specifically the premium F-18C early. I absolutely hate dealing with them. I hated dealing with them in the MiG-29. I hated dealing with them in the Phantoms and the Tornadoes. I even hated dealing with them in the F-16A, one of the best dogfighters in the game. I just hate dealing with them in general, even if I am in a good plane. The issue is that if you get hard focused by them, you're forced to stay in the notch without being able to counterfire, since the P-Sparrows can relock, and your 530s are not faster than the Sparrows. You might say, okay, well then you can try and get in a dogfight, where the F-18 has a poor retention, so you can just rate fight until you win. Firstly, they're starting with a massive positional advantage coming from your side and behind you. They're just 190-degree turn away from getting onto your 6. Secondly, if you want to try and take the raid fight, you can't purely rely on energy alone. If they turn tight enough, they can just sit inside of your circle for at least one full turn circle, even if you are better at raiding than them. Third, most planes compress above 900 kph, so even if you're coming into the fight with a lot of speed, you have to drop it down to at least 900 if you want to actually be able to use the turn against them, further reducing the amount of energy you come in with the fight with. So given the positional disadvantage, the relatively minor energy difference from having to lose your speed to actually be able to turn, and the excellent first turn of the F-18, what you usually end up with is just them sticking behind you immediately. You can try to extend away, but then they can easily sling a Sparrow at you, and now you're forced to multipath, or turn back for a notch, or roll dodge from rear, which is very inconsistent, and even if it's not in range to follow you, you're stuck running and on the defensive again. And even if you do get a raid fight, it takes time to build a positional advantage, and so you're stuck circling and losing speed, making yourself a very spotted and very slow target for a third-party kill. I keep hearing about how the F-18C early is a bad premium and that it sucks, and I get that it's slow and it doesn't sustain turns well, but from my experience of facing them, they are some of the most annoying and least fun enemies to fight, that I'm actually tempted to get it and try it, just to see why people hate it so much. The F-18A is excellent and definitely too strong compared to some of the other 12.3s, so as far as I can tell, it's mostly just people coping about Uptiers, which do suck, but they suck for everyone, and it's not a reason to say that it's worse than any of the other 12.7s when it objectively outperforms most of them. The F-18A is a little less difficult to deal with just because it has less missiles and it can't data link its missiles, but from long range you have no way of knowing whether an F-18 is a C early or an F-18A. So unless the F-18A has used all of their missiles already for some reason, then they're just as deadly and at a lower BR, so I really cannot understand the logic of why it's at 12.3. Like, what is an F4E supposed to do against this thing? Even in this airframe, turning doesn't work, running doesn't work. The only thing that does work is to not start on the defensive, which is not something that you can guarantee in the Mirage 4000, nor the MiG-29, or the F-16A, or the Phantoms. Even in a Fox 3 Slinger, if you don't know where the missile is, then you're just forced to stay in the notch until the F-18 shows up, once again in the dogfight with a massive positional advantage and that great one turn. That is usually enough to just finish you off by getting on your 6. Okay, rant over, let's get into the gameplay. This is that clip from earlier where I had to double launch on that F4S, and now I'm completely out of radar missiles because I'm stock. It looks like there's phoenixes raining through the clouds. That's not a great sign. This is a full down tier though, so maybe I can get some work done, but that does mean that I'm going to have to deal with a lot of F-18s, which you see in up tiers as well, but you see a lot more of them in down tiers. Because it seemed like there was going to be a lot of enemies in front of me, I'm going to actually fly backwards right now to get closer to my friendlies. I cannot afford to be the first person to go into an engagement, especially if I'm down to only IR missiles. The enemy team seems to have gone for our bases, and then they're swinging around right now back towards us. So I'm going to go see if I can investigate that area. But it looks like there's an F-16 coming in here really quickly. Unless it's an AJ, I don't think he's going to have any radar missiles, so I'm going to send out an IR missile for him. But he sends a missile, and he also flares it away pretty easily, so that's not going to track. And now I have to try and set up to get on his 6. Which is not a guarantee, because he might just run and go really far away, out of my Magic 2's range, or we're in a dogfight, where it's going to be really difficult to get on his 6 anyways. Not quite able to pull in for the shot there, and I've got an F-15 that's locking me right now, so I have no idea what's going on. I'm losing all situational awareness every single time I have to try and go for a missile shot. Luckily, the friendlies take care of the F-15, but now there's a lot of stuff going on in front of me, and I do not know where they are, so I'm just going to keep chaffing and flaring, and hope that I'm able to get out of the way. F-16 is also just as distracted right now in a dogfight with an F-2A. I don't think he's going to win it, but the faster this dogfight ends, the quicker my F-2 can help me deal with the rest of the enemies that are on my 6 right now. Okay, severe damage. Enemy coming in from the front. ACM is able to pick him up. He has launched a missile, so I want to wait for that missile to get out of the seeker so that it's not going to mess with the tracking. It's an F-18A. Hopefully he's not able to flare it. It looks like it's tracking. Okay, it got him. Sometimes you can get instances like that where the enemy thinks that it's a radar missile and doesn't bother to flare. We got an F-18C coming in. It looks like our F-2 might have taken a hit there. That's not good. I cannot get stuck in a dogfight against an F-18C. But it does look like he came in with a bit of speed, so I might be able to turn in here. Or, well, I guess I don't really have a choice because another F-18 is launching a missile at me. The first one is not able to get a shot on me. He flies over. I'm going to stay in the notch. It wasn't an F-18, it was actually an F-20. But now I'm stuck in this 3v2. I don't know what the state of the F-2A is, but it looks like he's taken multiple hits. And I guess my best bet here is a raid fight, hoping that they don't start with enough position that I'm able to actually get on their 6. I probably should have fired a Magic 2 at that F-18A, but it looked like he was out of range. He wasn't flying away from me very far, though. I am able to try and fire on this F-20, which surprisingly does find its mark. They do turn pretty well off the rail, especially when compared to a PL5E2, but usually I don't expect too much out of them. But anyways, my rudder is gone, I'm shot out, and so I have nothing I can do here but just go down. Yeah, against some of the better 4th gen airframes, this plane really does not have an answer, especially when you factor in the missile kit. Next match, I'm starting at medium altitude once again. I spot an F-15 down low. It looks like he's trying to multipath, so there's a good chance this one doesn't get to target, but I'm going to hold the lock anyways. And even though I launched it from 10 kilometers, the missile only finds its mark when I'm basically right on top of him. So these missiles are horrible for semi-active radar missile jousts. Magic 2 out on the F-18, and it takes him out because he wasn't paying attention. And I was in a lucky position right behind him. Let's see if I can find anybody else that I can deal with. There is a contrail high altitude up to the left. I'm gonna see how far away he is. 20 clicks, that's not too bad. I might be able to get there in time. And then I noticed that my teammates have already fired a bunch of missiles at him, so I'm just gonna let him be. I'm gonna deal with this big horde that's right in front of me instead. Fox 1 out. The Su-30 is not firing a Fox 3 at me, so I'm able to sort of hold the lock here, when otherwise it would have killed me. I'm barely able to guide it in with track mem. And again, I fired this missile from like 7 kilometers out, and even though I cranked an F-pulled as hard as I could, it only got to him when he was like 2 kilometers away from me. So I was only barely able to get into the notch from all of these missiles that the enemies are currently firing at me. Oh, and there's so many more right now. I'm just gonna keep staying in the notch here. There's no point in contesting. I have to stay in the defensive, and if they get on my 6, then I'm screwed either way. I'm gonna Try and use the terrain here, dip below it. Maybe I can try and get a more advantageous position from this now. But I am down to only magics, so my effectiveness is greatly limited. Su-33 directly in front of me, that could be a potential target. He did fire a missile. That missile is actually coming towards me, but I don't notice until the last second. Luckily, I counterfire a missile and it actually manages to flare it away. I wasn't sure if the first Magic 2 was going to hit, so I accidentally sent a second one out a little too early. Anyways, F-18 on my side. I cannot tell if he's locking me or not. It looks like he's actually going for somebody else at the moment, but the radars are so noisy that I can't really afford to take the risk there. Another F-18 coming in from the head-on. Try and fire my guns at him, but I miss all those shots. MiG-29 directly in front of me. He's not going after me, so that's a Magic 2 out for him. Hopefully it gets to him and not the missile. Okay, it looks like it went for the missile. Now I got two F-18s on my 6, and I'm not outrunning one of them, and I'm definitely not outrunning his missile, so I'm going to try and get into the notch here. And now I'm stuck in a dogfight where I'm starting with 900 kph speed and a positional disadvantage, you know the drill. This other F-18 doesn't seem to be going after me right now, so I'm going to fire a missile at him. Hopefully he's distracted and doesn't flare it. And I'm going to keep trying to sustain this rate, but I mean, come on, guys. Just because Willy Walrus made a 1v1 video showing how the F-18 loses in a low-altitude, equal-energy 1v1 starting in both of the head-on position, when there aren't any opportunities to third party, any opportunities to use radar missiles, much less semi-active ones, that doesn't mean that the F-18 is bad in ARB, especially when it gets to fight enemies that are one generation lower than it. Anyways, next match, I'm not going to show too much of this one, because the main point of it is at the end. I get a pretty free kill on this F2A who was too tunnel visioned and was trying to get a missile launch on somebody else. I try and go for a rear aspect 530, which is possible since he's pretty high above the horizon, so there's less ground clutter for my radar to pick up, but they end up trading in the head-on with the Su-30. It is incredibly tragic trying to watch this missile inch its way towards the enemy from long range. I'm down to IRs, so I'm going to try and send this Magic 2 at this J-10. He is kind of far away, but he's also heading sort of towards me, so it's going to hit. Find a MiG-29N that was ground pounding and killing AI targets. And it looks like he's RTB, so I'm going to try and send one at him as well. This is a side aspect shot, so it might actually get to him since he is only 4 kilometers away, as long as he doesn't turn away and try and run away. Okay, there we go. And most matches end at that point, but it looks like there's still 2 enemies left on their team. It is a very rare occasion for there to be a late game at all in these matches anymore because of all the premiums dying. One of them is an F-14. They took off for a second time and slung off all their Falcors, and they're back to RTBing. And this other guy is an F-16, I think. This could potentially be an interesting dogfight. He probably knows that I'm coming since he is heading straight towards me at the moment. But his radar is also off, so it doesn't look like he's ready to fire an AMRAAM at me. Maybe he's stock grinding as well, maybe he's only got 9Ms. Anyways, I'm going to go into the vertical so that I can get quickly below 900 kph, so that I can get to my instantaneous turn speed. And I am actually pretty comfortably behind him at the moment. It looks like he might have come into this fight with a little too much speed. Though if he manages to convert this into an energy fight, then there is a possibility that I might end up losing the advantage. Anyways, I missed my first set of rounds. And I missed my second set because I suck at aiming. But I should be able to get behind him right here. Okay, now to see if I can go and deal with that F-14 that's landed again. He seems to have spotted me, so I'm going to try and go after him now. I did just hear the F-16 fire something off. Oh, those are 9Ms. Ooh, can I dodge them? I guess not. Sometimes the flower pattern just doesn't decide to work at all. Yeah, I still have no idea how to properly dodge the IRCCM on those things. But I also thought that that wasn't possible. Didn't they change it so that if you're severely damaged, you can't use HMD mode? I guess not. I guess that's still a problem. Anyways, next match, this is on a large EC map, and I've flanked partly towards the left. I didn't find anybody over there, so I'm sort of heading back towards the center. And while I'm doing so, this MiG-29 has found me. Or I guess it's probably more likely that it's some sort of a Su-27 or Su-30. I have a lot of chaff, so I might as well spam it off here. It looks like he's firing an ER at me, based off the fact that he is just holding lock. So I am required to just stay here in the notch this whole time. Hopefully it's going to decoy it eventually, but it's weird. Every single time I turn, it looks like he adjusts direction, and so it's not quite precise as I need it to be. I know the Su-27 also gets an IRST, which, when in track mode, it briefly can switch to if it detects that the target is notching and chaffing. So I add some flares to the mix, and it looks like he got killed by a friendly derby anyways, so all of that effort just to try and notch one R27ER is not really a good return on investment. There is a multi-jet in front of me. I don't know what it is, but it definitely looks like it's some sort of an actual enemy, so I'm going to fire a missile at him. He is vaguely going into the notch, but I don't think he's fully able to get into it, nor is he able to multipath, so that's a very easy kill on a really strong plane with potentially some of the worst pilots. Checking the map, I'm pretty far out away from my other friendlies, so I'm going to try and sort of look around, see if there's anybody here using my TWS. I'm getting locked by an F-14 behind me and a MiG-29 off to my left. I'm going to see if I can find that MiG-29 first, since then I will be able to get into the notch for the F-14. Okay, there he is. He's a bit far away, and he's also not going very fast, so if I do launch a missile at him, he's probably going to be able to very easily notch, so I'm just going to try and go down low. I was hoping that the terrain would eat it, but it doesn't look like it's going to do that, so I'm just going to notch and chaff. And flare right now as well. It is tracking a little behind me, so I'm hoping that it's not following me too much anymore. Yep, there it goes, it's past me, so it should be safe for me to just continue on. Magic 2 out on that 14, he has very hot engines and only BOL countermeasures, so it's not going to be very easy for him to flare that away. The Su-27 SM is going after me still. I thought he was dealing with some other friendly over there, but I guess not. I'm going to try and notch and chaff these. I'm pretty low altitude, so it's probably going to just stay in IOG for a long while anyways, so I might just be wasting chaff here. But he's done firing missiles at me, and he is actually going after the Skafir now, so I'm going to try and fire an R530. He is very much not going very fast, but he is also above the horizon, so maybe it might get to him. Okay, sometimes I guess I just gotta trust the process. That could have also tracked a friendly if I wasn't lucky, but good thing it worked out this time. I have brought the 4 radar missile kit this time, so I actually have more to launch now that I'm actually spaded in terms of ARB gameplay. Okay, so it's at least an F-15C since he's launching AMRAAMs at me. Going into the notch, staying in the notch. It looks like the missile is missed. And now I gotta find him again. I do see his dot, and he did also fire a different missile, so I am able to track him, sending my last R530 out. Let's hope it finds its mark. He doesn't look like he's found me quite yet. Okay, now he has. I'm gonna stay side aspect so he has a harder time launching, and I'm gonna have an easier time notching. Okay, it found his mark. I'm gonna just go into the notch now. Whew, okay, that could have been very dangerous. It looks like he launched a 9M at me as well, but that wasn't quite able to turn in time. Okay, I'm actually doing pretty well right now. I'm down most of my missile kit though, since I only get 4 radar missiles and 2 IR. At this point, I probably should RTB and try to get more missiles back, but I kind of wanted to go for a high kill carry match, so I'm hoping that maybe I can get another kill here. F-14 somewhere in front of me, and that shouldn't be too difficult of a target to deal with. I don't know how well this plane stacks up in a dogfight against it, especially if the F-14 pilot is competent and swings their wings out, but most of the time they don't do that, so I'm probably going to be able to get an easy kill here, especially if I can get the Magic 2 off on him. Turn my radar off to go into stealth mode, hopefully he can't find me. His radar is very loud, so I can't really tell if it's just the side lobes painting me or not, but I am on his 6 now. I'm thinking I might try and go for a missile shot here, but actually he's maneuvering quite a lot and he's going in for a dogfight, so I might as well give it to him. I might be able to save this missile for a better occasion as well. Dropping throttle to try and stay behind him, and then I'm going to raise it back up so that I can finish this loop and get on his 6. And it looks like that's the end of the fight. Pretty straightforward. Okay, that was pretty good. This could potentially be a 6 kill or a 7 kill game. But now I'm really low on fuel and I need to RTB. On my way back, there's a Su-30 that had finished base bombing, and then now he's basically camping our short airfield, trying to poach people that are coming back. Low on fuel and low on ammo. He's managed to kill one person this way, and he's on my right somewhere. I was hoping that by staying in the notch he wouldn't be able to find me, but I'm guessing that he already knows that I'm here since he is approaching on my RWR. I do have enough fuel, but I am a little worried about the number of flares that I have right now. I'm gonna have to start on the defensive because there's no way that I can counterfire against him with no radar missiles. Okay, he has hard-locked me. That's not good. If he fires an ER at me, then I might just be dead here. I'm going to try and pull in, basically tell him to launch a missile at me, while also closing the distance so that we might potentially be able to get a dogfight here. Okay, missile is out. I'm going to just stay in the notch and continue chaffing it. I'm pretty low, so it's probably just going to stay in IOG the whole time, especially if I stay in the notch like this, or not. That is kind of peculiar. I was pretty low to the ground, so under most circumstances the missile should just stay in the IOG. Checking back the replay footage, it looks like he was using data link to try and guide it towards me. But even under these circumstances, the missile does usually stay in IOG, and data link isn't enough to guide the missile into its final trajectory. But perhaps because he launched it from so close, the R-77 maneuvered a little bit to find itself slightly behind me, and so was able to actually track me last second. Plus it also came in from a very low angle as well, which I guess contributes to the fact that it could potentially see me. But despite that, usually at those low altitudes, the missile isn't able to track, just because there's so much ground clutter, so maybe even if data link isn't enough to guide it in terminally, I was unlucky enough to be within the proximity range of it and should have maneuvered a bit more to get out of it. I have seen some anecdotal evidence that the missiles are able to track in pulse mode significantly better looking down. I've seen missiles bite on chaff practically on the deck, while in straight look-down mode, so that's a result that's a lot different from the test that we ran earlier in the angle gating video. Perhaps it has something to do with the terrain as well, I really can't tell. And terrain is something that I can't really isolate for and test for. So in this instance, I'm not really sure what to make of this situation. And if staying low is no longer a guarantee for the missile to stay in IOG if you manage to continuously stay in the notch, then there really is no point to trying to stay low and notching at the same time. For better notches, you'd want to stay at higher altitudes so that enemies aren't able to data link at all. Since if the missile can actually see you at lower altitudes, but just at a shorter range, that just means that the missile is going to stay in IOG for longer, potentially be data linkable for longer. It's only going to be able to see chaff at shorter ranges, and so you're going to have less time to actually be able to react. So far, I haven't had a single good match with a high kill amount and a good ending, so I'm gonna try and get one. Because this F2 is above the horizon, I was initially able to lock him and fire at him from rear aspect, and so when he turns back towards me and notches my radar, I'm actually able to pick him up again. And so there are these rare occasions where the 20-second relock window is actually quite nice, but it is still much less useful than if you were using Sparrows on something like an F-15 that actually has a full TWS radar. Missile out on the F-16, this is not high likelihood to actually hit. He could multipath it. He's also going very slow, so he could notch it. Yeah, it looks like he just notched it. I'm gonna try and relock him again, but I don't think it's gonna get to him. Yeah, it's not looking good. Especially since I brought the 4 radar missile loadout, so after these 3 kills, I'm down to 1 530D left. F-18 on my RWR to the right. It doesn't look like he was going for me, but his radar is pretty noisy, and I'm forced to stay in the notch. I'm gonna try and turn back in for him, but it also looks like he's now launched at me again. Or never mind, he launched on the Mirage. F-18 is distracted, so I have a little bit of position here and a lot of speed. So I'm going to try and go a little upwards. I do also have a friendly here with me. The F-1C probably won't be that great of a dogfighter, but it's still a 2v1. And so he's able to take him out. Thank goodness, I really do not like dealing with them. There's an F-4 somewhere in front of me. It looks like it's that F-4S over there, so I'm going to get a lock on him if I would stop blocking my friendly AI targets. And that guy's dead. I wander around for a bit until my RWR gets pinged by this F-18 that's in front of me, so I'm heading in for a dogfight. He's launched a missile at me. I'm going to just stay in the head-on for now, because it's going to take a while for his Sparrow to get to me, and there's no point in intentionally losing my energy or my position just because he fired a Sparrow that's going to take 10 years to get to me anyways. So yeah, I can also track it on my radar right now. I'm noticing that it's still 9 kilometers away, and so I'm going to very lazily get into the notch here. It's probably a P Sparrow, so the notching process is going to be a little annoying, having to stay in the notch like this for a while, but now at least like this, there is a chance that I actually hear it go by, instead of having to guess whether he's fired another one at me or not. I thought that was another missile for me, but it looks like it's not. I don't know what he's going after. It actually looks like he might be going after something else. I don't know if that was intentional, but he just killed an AI. I'm going to lock him up. I'm going to fire the missile off, and I'm just going to pray right now. I'm just going to pray that his missile doesn't get to me before mine does. Oh, okay, it looks like he didn't fire at all, actually. But I was getting a launch warning on my RWR, so that was very scary. He kind of screwed up big time there. Oh, and it was an F-18A anyways, so he didn't even have P Sparrows. But you never know, you never can be too careful, so that's why these guys are so annoying to deal with. I mean, if he found me again and played it right there, then I probably would have been dead either way. Anyways, the last guy is another F-18. He just got done bombing a base and then killed a friendly around there, so I know that he's at least able to kill people. He's not just purely base bombing. I know he knows where I am, so I'm going to try and go low and then maybe peek over these hills a little bit to see if I can spot him. I do not want to try and get in a head-on dogfight with him because there's a good chance that he still has radar missiles, and we already know how that ends. So by going stealth here, I'm hoping that maybe I can get the jump on him, start on his 6. I do get an RWR ping, but that doesn't mean that he's found me because his radar is just kind of noisy. He's also flying off to the side, so I guess he had a similar idea. Luckily, I am able to actually get behind him here. So I'm starting with a really good positional advantage this time. Surely in this position I can actually win a dogfight against an F-18. I just need to make sure that I don't overshoot, stay on his 6, and then hopefully I should be able to get a gun solution. He does turn much tighter than me though, and he is a much better one-circle fighter. So there was a chance that he could potentially turn it around if I made a mistake there, but dealing with them is so annoying. I'm very glad that I was able to kill him there. Well, there's the 5-kill good ending match that I was looking for. I really do not have it in me to continue spading this plane fully, so this is where I'm just going to leave it. If you can help it, I would advise you against playing this plane. I think I've made my reasons pretty clear. Rank 7 France has some pretty good planes anyway, so I would just stick to those until you can get to the Mirage 2005F, which I also don't really like, but at least it gets Mikas. But that'll be all for now. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.